Hello, my name is Nicolas Krassas. I will be presenting Red Team Tactics, a brief introduction to Red Team Tactics, target, methodologies and tools. This presentation is meant to be for someone who is starting at the moment, and he will be using it as a reference. Hopefully I will be able to create in the near future several slides and several new presentations about more advanced topics covering each of the target set in a different different presentation. A few things about myself. I have more than 20 years experience in the IT area. I started as a system administrator with always a big love for security. My first bug was after a few days that I was introduced to the internet service provider. I found a way to bypass the dial-up authentication, and I was able to log in without using any credentials in the environment. I have experience in the telecom area, in the internet service provider, cloud provider, and overall in the security space. Mostly as working as a system administrator and network administrator, and also as a security architect in the last 5 to 7 years. Occasionally, I participate in capture the flag challenges. I like them when I have time and the work is not pressing. And I really love hack the box machines, where I was passionate for about 2 months. I couldn't stop playing on the environment. You may know me from my Twitter, which is DinosN, that started about 10 years ago, where I'm trying to share awareness and filter posts always related to security and nothing else. I do try to make my content as clear as possible and as relevant as possible, trying to avoid spamming people that are interested to learn on the area. What is the red team? By definition, I will read it just for you to have it as a reference. I would like to make a point later on the difference between red team, blue team, purple team these days, and other color teams. So red team by definition, a group of people authorized and organized to emulate a potential adversary's attack or exploitation capabilities against an enterprise security posture. The objectives. The red team objective is to improve enterprise information assurance by demonstrating the impact of successful attacks and by demonstrating what works for the defenders in an operational environment. Keep in mind that when we're talking about red team, we are talking about results. We're not talking about potential threats. And this is very important because we see it a lot in some analysis and assessment from people in the area, that they are providing a report from a vulnerability scanner and a report that does not contain any actual impact, any actual demonstration of a successful attack, and they are presenting it as red team work. This should not be it, and there should be a differentiation between a vulnerability assessment and an actual red team result item. Blue team, on the contrary, blue team is a group responsible for defending an enterprise use of information system by maintaining security posture against a group of mock attackers. Essentially, the company itself in our line of work, we don't see many directly blue teamers, at least in my area. We only see the project owners and developers that are trying to defend their environment. A few personal notes, mostly in the differentiation between a red team assessment versus a bug bounty. Even though inside the idea of bug bounty is demonstrated by a red teamer, the process is not exactly always. When we're talking about red team assessments in the enterprise network, we are not always talking about bug bounties. and they are near similar. We're using the same tools, but the results are different. Why is that? The red team, usually the red team assessments are smaller in nature. When you are in an enterprise environment, in most of the cases, you are not going to take one very broad scope that it will be assigned to you because you are mostly limited in time. You have direct client communication, that's a very big benefit. You have faster responses due to that. So anything that you will want to test, anything that you will see as potential threat, you can communicate it easier to the application owners. You have direct communication with integration teams that will help you to go through possible issues like authentication, authorization issues. You need credentials, you need different credentials, you need some host to work with, or some knowledge, some internal knowledge of the application. And sometimes these are going to be provided to you much faster, much easier. And in many cases, in the red team, in the enterprise environment, in many cases you do also provide support into the resolution of the issue. Not everybody knows how to resolve a security issue. Even though you will find it, you will have to assist the team in many times. You will have to assist the developers many times in order to be able for them to resolve it. Another thing is that you will always have to verify that all the changes from the items that you found during your test and you reported to the clients are remediated and they are resolved correctly. In the bug bounties, we don't have this. Most of the times we are going to deliver the findings, take the bounty, and go on with it. The bug, on the contrary, the bug bounties, the size matters. The bug bounty teams are very big. Anybody can join Bugcrowd, HackerOne. There are not really requirements for someone to join. So anybody can start testing on their targets. Very big crowd, very big targets, large variety of skill sets. This is due to the people that they are, different people are joining the environment. The responses are significantly slower. No direct client communication. You will never have. You will never see the client in the background in programs. Everything is filtered from the program owners. In most cases, you just submit a bug, wait for your payment, and you forget about it. You don't need to go back to it. You don't need to check for remediation unless the program will bring it again back as a bug bounty verification program. But in most of the cases, when you are submitting your bug and you get your money, you are done. The very big benefit when you are doing bug bounty, you have all the time in the world. You have all the time that you need in order to test. You are competing with others, but still it's up to you how much time you are going to spend in a program and how deep you are going to go in it. On the contrary, when you are doing a red team assessment for in an enterprise environment for a client, you are limited by time. They're not going to wait you forever. You have to work in a certain amount of days, possibly depending on the environment. This could be in weekends, evenings, in order not to cause interruptions into production, that environment that they're used for testing or demo, and so on. The targets. Most of the time, and this presentation is what I would like to discuss about. Most of the time in our days when we are speaking about red team targets, everybody goes in his mind into web applications. There are more to it. There are more to it, and there are things that they are not really, we don't really see them in bug bounties much, so they don't get this much exposure. There are host targets, one or many systems that may include network devices, IoT devices, virtual and physical environment, cloud infrastructures, mobile targets. Maybe this is something that you have seen because they are kind quite popular also these days. Mobile applications, 99% these days you would be on Android, on iOS. I haven't seen any BlackBerry or anything else in the recent years. Web application, which is the most common over the last years. Hardware, firmware, physical security assessments, application security, reverse engineering code security analysis. These are items that you don't see often, but they are here. Source code analysis and security evaluation on the source code and logical program flow. I will start with presenting a bit of methodologies, and I will go on into each of the targets, presenting some methodologies and ways that one can engage with it. Frameworks. Frameworks and methodologies that are used. One and most common is the OWASP framework that is covering a lot of areas. There is also mobile penetration testing. There is web security testing guide. Amazing team, amazing work. Highly recommended for anybody that's starting, but highly recommended also for somebody who is daily involved into security assessment, analysis, penetration testing, red teaming, in everything. There is the 80CK from Mitre framework, NIST, the P-test standard, penetration test. And also, looking around for books, I found one very interesting book and very old book, the Red Team Handbook, which is not actually an IT handbook, but it is presenting the mindset of a red teamer, how one should think when you are doing a red team testing. The methodology starts from the reconnaissance to the weaponization, delivery, exploitation, installation, command and control, and from then on you have the actions on objective depending on the level of action of the access level of access that you have. Starting from the assessment targets, I would like to start from the source code security assessments. As it is possibly something that you are not going to see often, and I haven't seen it also in any of the bug bounties. Maybe I haven't seen it, maybe it's not there at all. The analysis can be done manual. You just download the source code, Git, and start working with it. grep is very powerful. You have your set of patterns that you will look for inside the source code, and you aim at identifying potential encoded credentials, keys, APIs, functions that can cause overflow, logical issues, and so on. The process takes long, and it's very painful and time-consuming. There are tools that can assist you for the analysis, always, semi-automated analysis. Not everything is maintained, and most of them are depending on the language that you will have at the time. So you need different tools for different languages. One nice tool that I recently had to work with is Infer. It's from Facebook, and I think it's covering JavaScript, Java, and Python. Codacy, Resharper, PyCharm, and there is a very big list on OWASP for someone that is interested in having a look on different tools. Keep in mind that not everything will work anymore. There are some that are very old, 7 or more years older. There is a significant learning curve when you're using one tool to do your analysis, your source code analysis, but I highly recommend spending this time, because eventually you will get better in understanding the code and better evaluating what you see in front of you. There are automated also commercial tools like the RIPS from Ripstech. They have done a very nice work in the last years, and they present it every now and then with findings in WordPress and other very big names. 45 static code analyzer and many others. Moving on the IoT hardware security assessment, as a red team assessment, we have the direct hardware access test, hands-on. You have the device, you are working with the device, you touch it, you open it, to identify the chipset inside and what you are dealing with. One website to assist you identify the parts of the actual hardware that you are watching in front of you, fccid.io, from where you can see specific schematics of the chipset in hand. The idea is that you need to identify through visual inspection and look for JTAG, UART, and COM or USB ports. These ports are used for debugging, and many times you can find them open, accessible, where you can connect with a appropriate tool as the JTAG regulator directly into the device, and you can possibly gain access without even having to go through any authentication process. Other tools, Minicom, Picocom, digital polymeter, pass barrier, Circa, they're devices that I've used in the past as well. They're very handy, especially for when you are dealing with hardware assessments. The basic steps, research about the device that you have. If you have already a firmware that you can download from the net, you don't have to go through all the process unless you want just to go for the knowledge of it. Open up and identify the components, identify the debugging ports as said before. Can you connect directly to it? Can you put your JTAG regulator or the bus pirate on top and read the firmware or read the port directly? Yes, then you have access. No, down the flash, analyze it. Moving on the firmware, as you have the firmware in hand, the first thing that you will do is just to go and have a look at it, have an understanding on what you are dealing with. Strings is very useful. Binwalk is an amazing component. It's been a few years that it was developed and it's still active. It can read almost anything that it is available, and you can extract from the firmware, the file system. You can extract files. You can manipulate it as you would like. Moving on, Firmadyne is a very nice emulator to emulate the whole firmware, where you can put it to run and see what it's actually doing, to see it running in front of you instead of a device. This can be done also with a QEMU emulator or any other emulator that will support the architecture of the device. As a binary analysis and reverse engineering in a red team, we have the need to identify the business function, to check the application workflow, if it is following a path, and test on it, to check if this path, what are going to happen if you are going to follow the path of the application. You have something that's accepting an input, a user input. If you put the correct input, you see a proper path of the application and as it is supposed to work. If you put something else, how is it going to handle it? Application function identification, this is something that you will have to do as you're working with a binary, reverse engineering using Gitra, IDA, Audit, Debugger if you're doing dynamic analysis, binary Ninja, Radar, other tools that are very useful for your work and analysis. Moving on, you will have, if you would like to move on in more into details, I will suggest fuzzing on the application and proceeding with exploit creation if successful fuzzing produce some results. Later you will have also some as states to prepare if you can produce a persistent exploit, bypass antivirus, gain access and maintain the access in the environments. Moving on to mobile applications, I'm very sorry that I'm speeding up in the process. I have limited time, and my main focus in this presentation will be to present at the end of it the basic steps to working efficiently with Burp, with Burp Proxy. So allow me to speed up a bit in the process of the presentation. On the mobile application, you have to be familiar with the jailbreak benefits from both the devices. On the iOS, you can intercept traffic for SSL inspection. You can install the API files without Apple Store. You can download it as it is given to you, or you can extract it from the device itself. You have the FreeDA, that it is a world-class dynamic instrumentation framework. FreeDA is possibly the best tool available for the mobile application analysis, exploitation. It will be beneficial for all of your work. I would really recommend to study it. It works both on Android and iOS, and so you should have a look at it. For Android also, jailbreak will help you to intercept SSL traffic for inspection. This is something that you will definitely need. You need to see what the application is doing in relation with the APIs that it's working on, where is it talking to, in which website it will communicate. Most possibly 99% this will be SSL traffic. If it's not, you have to report it as unsecure communication. And you will have to see what is being passed through this encrypted channel. For this to be done, you need to be able to intercept the SSL traffic. FreeDA again is working on Android also. Some tools just for reference on iOS. Personally, my favorite again, FreeDA, Passionfruit. It's very easy to use and very handy just for a quick view. Objection is another tool that it goes together with FreeDA. It is helping on your work and assisting to make things a bit faster, especially if you are starting with iOS reverse engineering and working with iOS applications. On the Android, we have a lot of emulators that can do the work also if you don't have a physical device. For the iOS, you will need a device. In order to install IPA files, you need to have a device, and most possibly you need to have it as much as possible in the latest version available following the iOS releases. Keep in mind that Apple is signing the iOS releases, so it is a race in between keeping your device jailbreaked and keeping it updated. I would recommend it, if possible, to have always one device in jailbreak. Android emulator Nox for me works the best. It's very fast, it's very light. Genymotion is a full-blown emulator, it's very good. Many people like Android Studio, it's also excellent. Just very big, heavy. You can also run at any point a full Android platform using an emulator as QEMU or VirtualBox. It's up to you as you prefer to work with them. On the tools that you will definitely use, the first one will be APK tool. With APK tool you can extract the application files, Android application files, APK files, and directly you have them decompiled and you can go through it. GT, GUI, AppMon, Objection, AndroGuard, Quark, Super, there are many applications also that you will find useful. There is a mobile testing guide here as a reference. You can find many tools and not everything is maintained, but the ones that I mentioned, at least they are kept alive. One thing that I didn't put properly in this presentation, there is one tool that will be very helpful for all your analysis, and for iOS and for Android files, is MobSF. And I'm using it as a Docker. You can install it if you like, or you can use it in the Docker environment. It's a very easy interface. You can just drag and drop the IPA or APK files inside it, and will provide an analysis, static analysis, if you cannot connect an emulator with it. But it is very detailed, and the results are very good. Moving on to host assessments. When you have a host, you have a large, assume that you have a large set of devices that you have to test. This may be devices of any kind, network devices, any kind of servers. I would recommend, of course, Recon at minimum. You have to see what you are dealing with, you have to check. Mascan is a great tool, and Map, it's a must. Mascan, depending on your environment, it may cause problems, or you may get slower results than expected. I have seen it in some cases. For automation, I would suggest Nessus if you can afford the license, as it is a license tool, or Greenbone, or it used to be called OpenBus, which is a very good tool, and it is actually feeding from the Nessus signature files, so it's pretty close for the work. It needs a bit of maintenance, you need to keep it updated, but it will do the work for you. On some brief introduction to host assessment, enumerate for weak credentials anything that you see, root, spray, Hydra, try to identify, don't hammer the host. Most of the people, they will not like it. Either you are in a bug bounty or you are in a red team engagement as an enterprise environment. The client will not tolerate heavy hammering on credentials. You may cause problems, so keep it as much as in control. Screenshots are very helpful in order to have a quick visual result of what you have in front of you when there is an HTTPS server, Acoton, Eyewitness, whichever you prefer. Don't forget always to look at every service, everything that you will see open and support in the environment. Have a look at it. Go identify what it is, the port. If you don't find it in an app signature, go and identify it in Google. Check for Kubernetes, Docker Expose port, Redis. Identify anything that it runs and it is open as much as possible as you can, in order to see if there is any vulnerability in them and something that you can work on and you can find. Finally, moving to web assessments. Again, enumerate all the things. Check for the technologies and framework used, certificates, alternate names in the certificates. Use Google as a hacking database. Webpack Machine. Have a definitely look in the Jason Hadid's debug Hunter's methodology. Therefore, he released it a few days back. I put a link here. Most possibly, he will present it as well. At the moment, I will say that it is the most complete reference and most updated reference in the tools and methodologies that you should follow inside your Recon. Some tools, some automation tools to assist you. Burp Proxy. I don't use it much. I don't like the interface. I came from Acunetics, so for me Acunetics was good. I had the opportunity to use it in the early age, but then I moved to Burp Suite. I don't think that I will change again. W3IAF, used in the past for automation, not updated anymore, cannot handle many things, cannot handle the AS correctly. Skipfizz was good when it came. It's not maintained. It's not gonna give you any more good results. If you want to use it just for some kind of rough automation, okay, but I would not even suggest that anymore. Some other just for reference, AppScan, AppSpider, Arachne, it's not maintained anymore. I see it sometimes people are referring to it. Guys, this is not maintained, the tool is not maintained, the version 2 was never released properly, it was in beta, and it has a lot of bugs, so I'll suggest off it. Detective Finance Packer, Retina, Qualys, and finally my favorite at the moment, and I don't think that I will be changing soon, Burp Proxy. I will recommend, if there is one thing to recommend in the presentation now and for the web assessments, go for the Pro version. It doesn't cost much, it is value for money definitely, and it will give you automation and little things that will make your life easier. The free release is also fine for somebody that he wants to get a first start and see how things work, but when you can afford it, to go for the full version. Starting on the Burp Proxy, starting with Burp Proxy, there is something that I would like to set it as a general guideline. By default, the memory it's not enough as the proxy starting. In my case, I'm adding the parameter in the Java in order to run it with 3 GB of RAM. Otherwise, some of the extensions are not going to work properly. Starting your proxy always will take some time. I will have a big recommendation also when you are starting. Always create a project disk. Never start with temporary project. You don't want to lose your job. Sometimes things may crash. Things may take time. Burp is also eating a lot of space as the time is passing. So maybe you will end up being out of space and things will crash. Keep always a copy on the disk. I have my own set of options that I'm loading every time. This is preferred to do. I will show you how to do it, and you start your project. This is Burp, still loading, not fully loaded. You see the extensions are loading, still loading in place. Not fully loaded yet. If you go to the extension tab, you will see the extensions, the B App Store, Burp Application Store, where you have your extension and you can download and install extensions as you will like. I have a set of extensions that I prefer to use, and some of them I choose not to load or to load them depending on the project that I will be working on. Here are the ones that I commonly have. Logger is a must to have. Keep in mind that it is also the reason that I'm loading the environment with 3 GB of RAM, otherwise it's not going to work in my system. The Logger tab is going to be messing around with the interface, it's not working properly. Also keep in mind that you have to load it, the sequence matters, at least for Logger. If you put your Logger up, it's not going to intercept traffic from the items, from the rest of the plugins that are loaded before it. Items you don't need are coming from. For this example, I'm going to use the vulnerable web from Acunetics as a testing environment, just to show around. And as you browse to the interface and you have set your proxy into the Firefox, you will see the proxy request coming. Normally, in the first request, I'm keeping them on repeaters. You can do that and send to the repeater, or use the Command R for the Mac or Windows key R for the Windows, I believe. I'm keeping the first request just to have the initial state, and so I can go back to it easier. Sometimes this is a login page that I would like to keep in order to perform tests. By the time that you start working, the target sitemap is populated. Always it's preferred to select and add the scope only the environment that you want to work with. And from here to choose to show only items that are in scope. It keeps your environment clean. It's much better. Now, my recommendation. There are a lot of ways to start a recon process, and there are a lot of tools. GoBuster, FF, WFuzz, Directory Buster. There are a lot of tools. I made some tests a few weeks ago, and I saw that one of the best tools in order to perform directory brute forcing, directory enumeration is actually inside Burp, and it is the TurboIntruder. The TurboIntruder can take many plugins and can take many forms as it is fully programmable on what you want to do and how you want to perform one scan or one test. At the specific case, I'm using the TurboIntruder just for directory browsing, directory busting, in order to identify files and directories inside the application that I'm working on. To do that, I just put the parameter, I set the parameter where the injection will be, the test will take place, and I start my attack. As you will see it is very fast. It performs around 300 requests per second. And let's filter with 200 on the items that we want to see. By the time that you have completed, and as you see it's already completed, you can select the items that you want, shift click, right click, add to sitemap. That's it. You can go back and reconfigure the list that you want and the parameters. If you want the engine to learn, you can send the parameters. You can set the parameters here, so the engine will learn and will continue to mutate in the searches in order to generate more requests towards the application. It's up to you. This is a very good tool. I will recommend to someone to spend some time and check on the parameters and create your own Python script on how you want to adjust your scan in every time. It's very fast also. It's one of the fastest that is around. Let's go back. Now we see we have a more detailed sitemap. One thing that I will not recommend is the following. Right-click, crawl and audit. I will not recommend it. Why? You are, speaking from experience, you are gonna miss things. It seems like the crawl and audit it should take time, first the crawl and then the audit, but it doesn't look like it's happening correctly many times, or some items are overlapping. There are some things that are not audited properly, or it's due to the hammering on the environment as well. So I will always recommend you to split the process in two phases, do the crawl and then do the audit on selected items, so you can also filter properly the items. The first thing will be to crawl. Together with the crawl, you can go back to your application and start browsing around or checking around any parameters that you want to check, anything that you want to see for yourself. It is a must to try things. You need to identify the logic behind it. You need to see how it is working, what is it doing, and the behavior of it. A nice 500. We see that possible SQL injection in place, and so on. Yep, this we don't need it. Another 500, so all good here. We're aiming for the SQL injections. As the process is proceeding on Burp, you will have in your dashboard the status and the items that you see through the manual testing. I already have this environment scanned, otherwise it's going to take some time to be completed. In your logger++, you will see all the requests that are going on the environment, and you can filter also for the specific environment. In order to have it clean. Let's load the already set of the test. Completed file from almost completed file from the analysis on this web application. We can see the request. We can see here the issue activity. I prefer to filter it in the following way, so I keep my eyes in the most interesting items and the items that are considered firm at least. And back on the target, we see that Proxy has identified 6 SQL injections, cross-site scripting reflected. Let's try this as well. We can try and see the responses directly. The embedded browser that exists and it's rendering the files is nice, but it's not going to show the XSS. They're not going to pop up. I'm using this always just to verify our XSS is showing up. The same here. Right click, show request in browser, copy. And again we have it. Let's find out from where it's actually coming. Roughly slow. From the application itself. Many times you will see items that are in this form. They're firm as a confidence from the scanner in different quizzes that are certain. When you see items like this, always go and validate them, verify the validity of them. You can do this from the request, pass the request back to the repeater, and from here you can verify and check if actually the Windows INI file is showing in the environment. As you can see, it is here. Let's see it render, if it's going to render properly. Yeah, it is rendering as well. You can keep this for reference and make it a LFI, local file inclusion, so you have it in your tab to remember. Another way you can always verify and look for more items is using the intruder. You can pass the request to intruder, command I, or pass to the intruder. Position are identified almost automatically. There are positions that you don't want to take part in the test. This is not, I don't care about the cookies. I care about this parameter that's already set. In the payload, I want a simple list. This simple list will be path traversal. You see the parameter file in which one I want it for something else. It's a Windows machine, so I will change that. To win or possible something like something that will exist in the environment much better routine. I will start my attack. The things to keep in your eye here are the responses. You can filter always by response. And if found, it's going to be presented here. Interesting things. Have a look at everything that it is shown in the issue. Validate them, verify them, and test and try to repeat through the repeater and through your browser everything that you see as a possible issue. There are one thing last to recommend. I would recommend in many cases keeping the responses from the server, and one good extension that you would like to have is the secret finder. It's a secret finder extension that will check for items as an API keys, passwords, username, basic authentication items, and anything that you will put also in the Python file in order for it to grab through the responses of the task. Very handy. There are things that may be missing, things that may not show here as issues, and they're possibly much simpler than you expect, as plain text passwords from databases, plain text passwords from users that are just shown, and you miss them because you didn't see them in an issue. That's a rough introduction. I'm hoping I will do more for Burp, and especially for the plugins that I'm using and the plugins that I think that they are very good. There are many plugins to test the upload functionality, deserialization, JWT, tokens, or to check how to attack auth processes, and many more. So hope to see you again in the future with a more detailed presentation and more technical. Thank you very much.